You see a woman now that can just feel like a crazy woman. They say that they are mad. They are not mad. It is condition. You see a woman
Royal
now
Salt
that can just feel like
collected
a
our
crazy woman.
land,
They say
our
that they
mineral
are mad.
sites.
They are not mad. It is condition.
Realize that the activities of man has negative impacts on the environment and on the health of the people.
Royal Salt collected our land, our mineral sites.
If you go to the mining sites, you see women
It is condition.
that start work as
It's 7 past the hour. Do we want to start?
Okay, yes, ma, we can start, ma. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third part of our mining host community training. I'll just allow I'll just allow Abby to give us welcome remarks before we read Mrs. Student's bio. So, ma, you have the mic. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And again, I join AJ in welcoming you to today's webinar, the training on mining host community rights. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. It's critical work that you do, protecting the rights of communities, protecting the rights of your community, and trying to understand what exactly the position of the law, position of policy, the position of government is, and what the rights of mining host communities are. One of the worst things that happened with us with colonialism was the loss of our will, the loss to decide to be self-determining, to decide what we want to do with ourselves, with our land. And that has gone on for roughly 300 years. They took over our land. They took over the resources. They changed our laws in such a way that we're not in charge. We don't get to decide, even when we say yes to what happens to us or to our land. And even after colonialism is gone, the land use laws and policies with which we were governed also continue to exist and continue to work against us as a people and allow people from other countries, from other places to come into our land, take our resources, and leave us impoverished and our environments devastated. You only need to look at Jos Plateau and the history of the Jos Plateau to understand that what you see when you go there is not erosion, but years and decades of tin mining that has left the land, most of the land, unarable. Because if you think about the Jos Plateau, it's also some of the best soil in which to plant. But then a good portion of that land has been lost to mining, and cattle rearing and farming have to now struggle with what is left of the land. The people of the Jos Plateau did not choose that. The people of Kumta in Meganga, in Biliari local government in Gombe also did not choose to have their land devastated, their waters polluted, the only real source of water polluted. Neither did the people of our community. The battle in the Niger Delta, if people don't really understand it, is really about people who lost control of their land, of their resources, of water, of livelihoods. Because otherwise, Nigerians are very, very peaceful people. And over time, that we've all come to recognize this anomaly, this uh, way of insisting that people should leave is not the right way which to live. We've come to see over time that this is not working for Africa. And so the African Mining Vision, the ECOWAS Mining Directive, both decided, it was decided in both documents that people should be allowed to choose the right, the right to self-determination, which is also one of the rights in the Human Rights Charter, one of the basic rights in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and of civil and political rights, the right to choose what happens to you. But this right is consistently eroded, and that's where the principle of pre, prior, and informed consent becomes very, very critical. It's there in the ECOWAS Mining Directive. It's there in the African Mining Vision. It shows itself, manifests itself in different forms in the Nigerian Constitution, even if it is not being obeyed. Section 17(2)(c) of the Nigerian Constitution, B of the Nigerian Constitution, says that the resources in any community should not be harnessed except for the good of the community. The good of the community is determined by people should be able to determine what is good for them. So in taking control back of our future, in taking control back of how civilization should be, that we insist on free, prior, and informed consent. But then how do you understand what free, prior, and informed consent, how does it work? And so we're very, very grateful that Ms. Tudun Taiwo will be speaking with us today on this subject and helping us to understand it better. So I'm going to yield to, first of all, thank you, Ms. Tudun Taiwo, and I'm going to yield back to AJ to make a recitation of Ms. Tundu's Taiwo's credentials. Thank you and welcome, everyone. I'm hoping after this training that we have a better sense and we're able to hold the Nigerian government accountable for the violation of the right to free, prior, and informed consent in mining projects. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. And to take us on that journey is Ms. Olatundun Taiwo. She is the CEO of Oyo State Pacesetter Mineral Development Company. She is a distinguished expert in mining law, policy, and solid mineral development, with an impressive track record of driving transformative initiatives in Nigeria's mining sector. Tundun plays a pivotal role in steering the strategic vision of the Oyo State Pacesetter Mineral Development Company, where she spearheaded its restructuring, secured critical mining licenses, and facilitated key investor partnerships to enhance Oyo State's mineral resource management. She serves as the vice chairman of the Mining Law Committee under the Nigerian Bar Association section on business law. As the founder of Impersal Mining Limited, Tudun leads a company specializing in mining law and regulation, solid mineral project development, trade advisory, negotiations, and attracting local and foreign investments for mining projects. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ms. Tudun Taiwo. Ms. Tudun, you have the mic, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AJ, and thank you, Global Rights, for having me. My name is Tundu. I think that everybody has heard that. And I'm just going to be talking about host community, how mining itself affects the host community, what are the rights that are available for the communities, and the rights under the Nigerian Act, the Nigerian law, under the ECOWAS and Africa Mining Vision. And then we'll look a bit about the CDA. I think the major rights that the Nigerian Act gives mining community lies in where you sign your consent and the CDA. What should the CDA contain? And so that communities will know what to look out for and how to better protect themselves. My slides are not up, will not be up yet, but we would get it before the course of the week. I'll send it to AJ tomorrow. So I'm starting, who are the host communities? They are the local communities, the local population living near directly, either directly, and they will be affected by the extraction activities. Sometimes the question has been, if the land is in a particular community, but the dust and everything that is happening, or it contaminates water in another community, how do we protect that other community? All of that falls into what the government or what we're expected to look at or to be protected. They often face the environmental degradation and other impacts that comes with mining. I know of a community there in Oyo State that has refused, the king has refused that mining activities should happen. And then the question has been, mining is, once there's a mineral under the ground, it becomes federal government's land, technically, under the fourth schedule of the Constitution, right, overriding public interest. But the man says that, I've seen what has happened to other communities. Banditry has happened. People don't want to work again. People can't even farm again. There's more stealing. There's sometimes prostitution. And so the question for us is, what impact does the mining have on host community? And so I'm going to talk about environmental impact. Environmental impact is when we all know the land, the water, a lot of time they don't reclaim the land, they leave it over the years, it creates dams here and there, and it eventually affects our livelihood. Social impacts, I've seen community, there's a mining site I went to in Taraba, and I think it's like that. And at the pit of it, even almost everywhere, at the bottom of the pit, the hill that had the pits and all, they had created another community entirely from the main community. And what has happened is even prostitution, selling hard drugs, mining attracts all sorts of people. And when you talk to these people, some of them have come from even outside Nigeria to come and work there, quote and unquote, despite the fact that they are not miners. Some have come to sell food, some have come to sell drugs to them. So it affects the social well-being, the social status quo of every community.
economic impact. What happens also is farming land are being taken over. Community heads have complained that their youth no longer want to work. Was because now they think that if we can just dig or we can just take one stone, we'll sell it. Why are we still farming? Why are we still learning how to trade? Or why are we still learning any type of handwork? And that's how mining has affected the said communities. There's also this security impact that mining has had on community. We've had more situation of banditry, kidnapping, where mining activities are taking place much more than any other place in the country at the moment. A lot of what has caused banditry is because of mining. That's caused theft. Sometimes they just come into sites to rob them, especially sites that are doing either precious metal or precious stone. That's gold or gemstones. Usually we see a lot of that when they just come into the place and they just kill them. There's a place I went to in Oyo State there. It borders between Oyo State and Kwara. The land falls between Oyo State and Kwara State. It's called Bani. Bani is a forest reserve area, but the amount of mining that is going on there, the amount of atrocity, the amount of killings that is going on there, and even when governments are trying to stop it, you see that sometimes there's a fight back. Recently, they killed the forest guards and they burnt them. This was earlier this year. It was such a gory sight to see, and we've seen that. And what has also happened is sometimes these people, when they are not getting buyers for the lithium they are mining, they come into the communities and they rob. Despite the fact that that place is a government reserve area, it's a federal government reserve area, is mining there is illegal, no license is given there, but the amount of people in that place, they're said to be over 3,000 people that lives inside that forest. Cars can enter. I've been there before. I had to be 2 hours on a bike. 2 hours on a bike, like we parked at the end of where cars can pass, and then we took a bike in there because I just wanted to see what was going on there. And automatically, it affects the community in Oyo State, which was why we were interested, and also affects the community in Kwara. And that's what mining can do. And so the question for us is, are we going to stop mining because of all of this? And I would say no, because the country needs to get its natural resources. And then that brings us to what are the rights of these communities? How are these communities going to be better protected? How are these communities going to enjoy of the land and at the same time enjoy of the produce of their land, really? And at the same time, they are protected. They don't have to go through a lot of damages, a lot of changes that comes with mining. And so I'm just going to go through the law. So for Nigerian Act, the Nigerian Mining Act, Section 116 says that after an agreement, no, after a license has been gotten, before mining, the mining company should enter into a CDA with the company, with the community. So the question is always, oh, they've gotten license, so why are they coming back at that time? But the truth is, there is a part at the point of application that is called consent. So what I've seen a lot of community do is, when you come for your consent, when you come and fill the consent with the community, they try to say, where's the CDA? Where's the, let's sign a CDA at that time. But in practice, I've also seen where they just give, some people have said the amount of their CDA, money to sign CDA is 1 million, is 2 million. And once you pay that money, they sign the CDA, and that's it. They just go. It's when you now want to come and start mining, which you already have the license at that time. And technically, the companies now say, oh, they have a right to mine, there are no more illegal miners. And sometimes it gives them an upper hand in the CDA, or if communities are not well sensitized. it makes it difficult for them to be able to determine the terms of the contract at that time. The Nigerian Mineral and Mining Regulation also talks about it. That's section 193, and that talks about the consent and all. So the question I would always ask at this point is, who determines what's in the CDA? How do we determine that? I know there's a guideline with the ministry, but usually when you go into these communities, I think that's where the civil society comes in. When you go into these communities, they don't know what is happening at the ministry. They don't know what the guidelines are. They don't know what their rights are. You see where I've seen a contract where they actually said we'll give something to the community, and I was baffled because what does something mean? I've seen where they just buy a car for the king, and that's all. We don't take care of the people. We don't take care of social amenities. We don't take care of reclamation. We don't take care of how the society. We don't take care of how the community will go back to status quo where we finish mining, because usually mining is long term. Sometimes mining happens 10 years, 20 years. And when they are done, they just pack their load and they go. Or when they are no more winning in a particular pit. I've been on a site where, not far from where they are mining now, they have a very big open pit there. And when we spoke about it, like, why are we not closing this place? If you know that we are not going to get lithium here, or no, there's no pegmatite leading anywhere, why are we not closing it? Why are we just leaving it? Because it just seems like you move to another side of your license and you continue mining without leaving this thing, without making sure that the people are protected. So we are going to also talk about the free informed consent and what it stands for. And so free, prior, and informed consent. So every consent, so I spoke about consent earlier, and I've seen situations where somebody has been cornered in a place, literally, and they've just signed. Sometimes they don't know what they are signing. Sometimes they did this consent in their community, and they think that what they've given is just a particular land, and those people get back on the system or back to Abuja to the cadastre. Now it's difficult because it's more expensive, but if they have the money, they'll do it. But before now, where licenses were cheaper, what I've seen is I sign a consent in my community, and I even express it in my own community because of what I do. Automatically, community where I'm from a mining community in Oyo State. The Oyo North is known for gemstones and lithium at the moment. And what I saw at that time was we signed a consent for someone for a particular place they wanted to mine, and I later discovered that they had signed the consent. I think it was the CDA they called me for, but I later discovered that the guy did not just put his license where he's mining. He dragged it. So when you get to the cadastral portal, when you put in the coordinator of where you want to mine, you can see if other places are open. There's no license, so you just drag it as long as you can pay for it. And at that time, it was even cheaper. So people just drag. And so what that happens is that we don't even know the amount of land. I don't know the space. I don't know what you want to do. That happens in consent. And that's why I would advise that civil society tell those people, fill the coordinates. There's a place where you fill coordinates in your consent. Fill the coordinates. Write how many cadastral units you are collecting. Each cadastral unit is 0.2 square meter. Let's teach them how to do these calculations. It should be free. It should not be holding anybody into ransom. And communities should have their processes. When I say processes, we see communities where once they buy car for the king, it stamps everywhere and they go. Meanwhile, it should actually, what the guideline advises is that there's a committee in each community, and it should involve both the women, the youth, and then they ask questions before they sign this consent. They know what it is. So it's free. It's not one person. It's not, they are not coerced into it. Informed. I've talked about the land. I've talked about the duration. So sometimes people don't know, especially if you sign a small scale if you sign a consent and you don't know if it's for a small scale mining lease or a mining lease or exploration lease. Exploration lease is 3 years, extendable to 2 years. Mining lease is 5 years. But small scale mining lease is 5 years. But mining lease itself is 25 years. Sometimes this community don't even know that they've signed off their land for 25 years. So we should begin to teach this community and community head to ask which type of license. If I sign this thing, how many years is it? How many years are we going to do? Which type of machines are you bringing? How does this affect our water? There's someone building a lithium plant at the moment, and one of the consideration for where it was built is how far it had to be from the community. And they had a dam which they had to make it larger so that and make sure it's not leading to any water or any stream in the community, so that when they begin to wash their lithium, because a lot of processing needs a lot of water, right? So but that when they begin to wash their lithium, it doesn't wash into the communities. So sometimes they just say, want to come and do mining. Before you know it, they are bringing machine. Before you know it, they are crushing. And they are crushing into the air. Because they don't even have access to water. Some crushers allow you to put water to reduce the dust, because some crushers don't. Communities need to begin to ask, what is this thing that you are coming to do? And before consent is signed, be informed about the land, be informed about exactly what they are coming to do. Mining is not just digging. Mining is not just digging the ground, and because there are a lot of components that works together for in the mining activities. There are a lot of components. Sometimes the heavy duty, if you are bringing a low bed and there's an excavator on it, if the roads are not good, it's going to spoil your road, it's going to spoil your bridge. And people don't know this. And they spoil everything, they go. So those are questions that we should ask. Preliminary assessment, let's ask them, okay, what's the volume of people that you're going to bring? How many people will you be employing? And I think that we need to teach communities to stop getting excited about mining. Oh, they are coming to mine in our land. Oh, we are very happy, we are very excited, which I mean is growth. And don't get me wrong, but I also think that we need to get communities to understand that they need our resources more than we need them, or maybe as much as we need them, really. But they need our resources. It's not a case of they are doing us a favor. So we need to begin to teach communities to go away from, thank God we now have a mining company working here that wants to work here, to coming from a place of power. We own the resources. You want to come and work here. How does that affect my people? What exactly do you want? What type of machine are you bringing? Will it affect our stream? Are you going to close back the land? And those are questions. Let's ensure that they are informed. Those are questions that should be asked. Those are questions that should be asked before going into this agreement. Not that our agreement fee is 2 million, and people just get excited when they pay this 2 million, or they do borehole, or they buy your king a car, and we are all excited. Usually when we see that borehole, and we are all excited, and we're happy to sign it. No, let's begin to ask questions about what, let's begin to teach. If communities are here, let's begin to ask questions. For the civil society, let's begin to teach them and on what they should look out for. And for consent is at the point where they are signing. I believe that every community should begin to work on committees. Those committees are able to hold them accountable. Those committees are able to I remember there was a license that someone was trying to get, and somebody actually, I know the person that was trying to get the license, and I don't know how it seemed to have moved past the community. And somebody from the community called me and said, "Do you know this person?" I said, "Yeah." Said he's trying to get license from here. There's a committee. If he's trying to get somebody to sign that thing, we'll contest it. at the cadastral, because we have a committee that you needs to go through. We need to know what he wants to come and do, and before consent is given in our community, right? And that's because we had a lot of people from that community that are quite educated. We have somebody that is big on mining, and he was even doing mining even outside that community, in the community, and he has a license somewhere in Kwara State. So wasn't just doing his own mining in that, but he had been able to create awareness for their communities. So consultation should be ongoing. Let's make sure that, let's ask before we sign, this place, where will it cover? How many farmlands, how many people's farm is it going to disrupt? How do we settle these people who are, especially the farmers, that their lands and their livelihood, or we relocate them, either relocate them by paying them, and then the community gives them another land and probably crops and fertilizer also, for them to start all over again. Those are questions, those are negotiations that should happen before consent, because once you sign your consent, it becomes very difficult. So for you to have a free, prior, informed consent, it needs to be free indeed. Nobody's cornered. Nobody says, oh, I did not understand, they just told us to sign. I think we've had a situation like that where somebody signed to some communities, and when we met with, they didn't have a king, they had a chief, the oldest chief, and they just brought the paper for him to sign, and said he did not know that they just told him to sign. And what had happened is that somebody younger in the community had brought the company, had told him not to worry, and just took it to the chief that they want to do this in our community, just help us sign here. So he signed there. And when dispute happened, we realized that the Baba did not even know what he was signing. And it was a younger person from the community that just brought these people. They had paid him, obviously, or they had promised him that we're part of the mining. And he just literally just got their king to sign it. So we need to get communities to understand the effect of what they are signing before they start to sign it. The overall project, the consultation has to be intact. I'm going to move to the African mining vision. What does the African mining? We know what the African mining vision is. The 7 points: trying to protect communities, trying to protect mining in Africa, and how mining is being done across Africa. One of the things that comes easily to me with African mining vision is always and I say that affects community really, is number 3. The ongoing African resource development and governance capacity is always, how does government protect its people? How do we make sure that the resource development stays within the ambit of protection, not just, and then we own governance of our mining activities. I know that at the moment AU is working on AMREC. AMREC will start to codify our reports on estimated reserve and all of that, the AMREC code. I don't think a lot of companies have ratified it yet, but they are still very much in the process. And what that would do for us automatically is that it allows us to now own how our minerals are being reported across. And this automatically will protect the community, because it is auditing, the monitoring, the regulatory, and improving resources exploitation regime. So what AU talks about in this number 3 really is how our resources are protected. Our resources now, we develop it to help with the domestic economy, and that affects the community. That affects where the mining itself is being taken care of, and it allows us to now stay in a place where we say that the mining is the resources is ours. The mining is coming to happen in our community, in our country, in the lands that where people live, people have formed their livelihood, and how does that affect them? Also, countries we begin to their tax returns, their royalties, their regulations, we begin to own it and begin to take responsibility, take charge, determine what happens in our community and with mining. Determine what happens. So it's not a case of, I remember I was in the middle of a contract with a foreign country. I own the land. You said I should bring 50% of exploration. You will bring 50% of exploration. And we'll still share it 50-50. And then you have said to me, it's a foreign country, I had said to me that if you come and explore, which we've done neuromagnetics that got you excited, if you come and explore and we don't see as much as so on your land, you pay us back the money we have spent. I had to say be going. Because at the end of the day, I own the natural resources. We've done Aeromax interpretation. It's gotten you excited. You are asking me to bring 50% of the cost. You will bring 50%. Our contributory is what 50%. We share 50%. So what does my land that I'm bringing with the natural resources, which is the core of the negotiation, what does that amount to? How do I put a figure or a percentage on that in the conversation? And I've seen a lot of that in mining, where because we are trying to bring in foreign funds, people just get excited. And the same way with communities, they just get excited. They're coming to do mining. We don't ask for anything. We don't stand our grounds with anything. We just get very excited. We just want mining to happen. And I think that we need to be able to get to that place, or communities need to be able to get to that place where they say that if you want to walk away, like no problem, you can go. If you are not going to protect my people, if you are not going to protect our land, if you're not going to get anything from this thing, you can go. And until we get to that place where people can say that, really, then there's no point. There's really no point for us to just make sure that mining, there's activities in our community without necessarily saying what's in need for us as a community. So I'm also going to talk about the ECOWAS mining derivative. The ECOWAS mining derivative, especially, it aims at harmonizing mining policy, laws, regulation across West Africa member countries to promote sustainable development, transparency and economic stewardship. It focuses on fostering common mining code and ensuring local community benefit. I think where this affects us most is local community benefit. The ECOWAS is trying to ensure that mining communities are protected, and there's an harmony in what we are doing. Sorry. So the key components of the ECOWAS mineral development policy includes harmonization, creating a consistent framework across ECOWAS member states, which I don't think we are there yet, but I know that AMREC, that code is not a legal framework really, but that code is our reporting system, which would allow that. So I don't need JERC report, I don't need N104 for me to be able to take my mining report to the market, because as it is, I think apart from South Africa, every other African country have to rely on foreigners, because they don't even give us the license to be able to do this report. I have to rely on foreigners to come and sign off our reports, or to come and do the exploration for them to be able to buy. The second one is, so we are looking at a situation where the legal framework across ECOWAS states is consistent. So we know that when we come to West Africa, this is how they are protected. Sustainable development, promoting the environmental sound practice and protecting local communities, and I think it still takes us back to environmental practices. I'm going to talk a bit on EIA, maybe at some point I can talk about it now. And we've seen where, and I think communities need to start asking that question. Before you start mining, where's your environmental impact assessment? I know that at some point in getting your application, no, when you're getting your exploration lease, you don't need it. But at the point of getting your mining lease, you don't even need it for small scale. But when you are renewing or getting your mining lease itself, you need it. But what has happened is people come up with this assessment. Let's begin to say that if we are going to collect a lease to mine in our country for in our community for 25 years, really, because that's what mining lease is. It's 25 years. Let us see what's come and test the ground. Bring your wagon drill. Just first dig a whole point. See how deep it is. Let us know how many meters you are going. How deep are you going to go? You might not be able to say meters, but how deep are you going to go under the ground before you bring this thing out? Because sometimes communities don't realize how big the project will be. I've been inside a mining site that I was in Nigeria here, really. I was about 22 feet below sea level at some point. It was that was my early days in mining, so I was even a bit scared, really. But that's how far. And these communities, the point of entry is so small that you might not even know that much work is going on. And sometimes communities don't even know how much work is going on there in their land. So sound environmental practice, environmental impact assessment, let's begin to tell community to ask that, come and do it. Don't bring what you have done in Abuja that somebody wrote for you. Come and do impact assessment on our land before you come and mine, especially at the point of exploration to mining lease, which makes it 25 years. Because exploration lease is just 3 years. If they don't find something in the land, they can be going. But after that, when they come and collect consent for the 25 years, communities need to ask for impact assessment. Community needs to say, stand their ground and say, don't give them what has happened in what somebody wrote in Abuja for you. Come here, come and show us, if you do this thing, this is how it will not collapse our land, it will not affect our water, it will not, because what I've seen is sometimes these mining companies don't even do the impact assessment. Sometimes they don't even know how bad or the weight of what they want to do is going to affect, because they are just digging. And a lot of time, mining companies just start to dig and they weather it. I always say it, sometimes mining in Nigeria is vibes, because a lot of times we weather it and see how it goes. Sorry about that. And we see, let's just see how it goes. Our community is our land, is our people, is our own home that has been destroyed, and people need to go away from. Let's see how it goes. You need to begin to say, if you are going to collect lease for 25 years, show us, let us know what the plan is. And in the next 5 years, when you finish this pit, are you closing it? Let us know what are you doing for my people? How are my people going to be protected? How are my people going to benefit from this? Are you going to give us 2%, 5%, 3% of what is coming under the ground? Are you going to begin, when you start to win, are you going to be able to will people be able to go for scholarship? Because why are you exporting? There was a case, I don't want to mention so much about that case, but there was a case a while back, because there are people that I know personally, but there was a case a while back that a community got upset, and the man was exporting lithium. He was already exporting it out of Nigeria, and nobody in the community can say they gained something apart from maybe he did water at the beginning. And this was like 15 years into mining in their community, and the community could never say, apart from that water he did a while back, and one time he helped them to complete something, they could not say this is what they've gained in that mining project. And this was a mining project that was exporting, was making money, where they were carrying out tons and trucks of lithium every other day. I've been to the projects before, and the community got upset. At some point, they said they were going to lock up the place, and then there was a bit of fight that that now created an unrest in the entire community before federal governments stepped in. So it's always a question of, and the communities probably at that time, they got bored and they got excited. He gave them, they probably paid for their concert. Maybe at that time it was 100,000. Because 15 years ago, it's not the 2 million, 1 million communities are charging now. And they got excited. And they did not think that of the long-term work that the mining companies will be doing, and now their community should be protected. The ECOWAS mining directive also talks about the um, artisan and small-scale mining, formalizing and developing the ASM. We all know how ASM, so sometimes we all know how these artisanal miners are. Sometimes it might not be the big companies that come and disturb our land. And so I feel that the mining companies, the big companies, they're easier to hold because they're probably trying to protect themselves, especially if they're bringing investors fund and protect their investors, their funds and their PR, basically their public relations. But you see artisanal mining and small scale mining where people just pick pits. It becomes a problem. There's a mining site I went to in Osho, and these people have license. The license is owned by the Osho state government, but how close that place is to houses scares me. Yeah, when they're like, no, you should not. There's no way. This is this close. There's a regulation that says how many meters you should be close to community. But they are mining, and the people they are living there. And if the bigger they mine, the bigger the site gets, the deeper they go, it will eventually affect the community. So sometimes it's not just the money, it is the how it affects us in totality. There's a corporate social responsibility. We've spoken about it, ensuring mineral operators contribute to local community development and ensure that communities get their their fair share. And I've been in a position where I'd also been on the side of the mining companies. So to be fair, sometimes I've seen communities that just stand their ground and they just stand and say no, 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 no. But at the same time, I've also said to the mining companies, we need to be fair to these people, because I know that there are probably lawyers or people here that have been on the side of the mining company and we are protecting our clients. So what I usually would do is that let's agree on percentage of whatever comes out. Let's agree on a percentage of whatever comes out, and we'll take it up from there. I don't know if I can take questions now. Then after that, I will go through CDA. So I can take question on it. Then we'll go through CDA. What makes up a CDA? How to write a CDA? Is that okay, or I should just go through the CDA at this point? AJ.
All right. I think you should just continue so that at the end we take the question so that we'll just have all the questions at once.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm just going to go through a CDA. I have a sample here. I don't know if I can. Maybe I can decide to release it when I'm sending the agreement, if I can make it as dummy as possible. So the CDA, I said in section 116 says after you get your mining lease, come and collect your CDA. Though I've seen in practice where communities now say do CDA before we sign consent. So what is the CDA? CDA is Community Development Agreement. That's what gives the community a legal right or a contractual right. I think that's the right word. A contractual right on the company or on mining activities, on how their communities are protected. And I see that in practice, what I've seen is that a lot of communities think that what is most important is economic gain, in a CDA, how much are you going to give us? How much are you going to give us? What do we gain? Come and bring 1 million and 2 million. But the CD actually allows you to protect yourself. So I'm going to start with consent. Consent properly gotten. The consent form in the ministry allows the landowner and the community to sign. So consent properly gotten will be where everybody, community now will be the chief, every committee that needs to be there agrees on signing it. And the next step will now be, the next step will now be, what is the right of everybody? The community, their right is to make sure it's free and fair, they don't disrupt the land, and they don't disrupt the people while working. They are not hostile to the people while working, which is very, and I think that a lot of community, except when it's outside people, banditry and all of that, a lot of community do not, I mean, there are cases where community have been funny, but I think that 80-90% communities want the mining activities to happen if all terms are reached properly. Is usually when they have problem is when somebody, people from outside community, banditry, kidnapping starts to happen. And one of what we should look at is essential amenities in the communities. Those are that's the benefit, one of the benefits. I always say that essential amenities. You see people say, "Oh, build borehole, build land, whatever the community wants, whatever we think that would help the community." I always say that local employment. Let's begin to ask that they would employ our people, and let's sometimes I always say when they say employment, then you see that they just want to get people to be laborers. Let's also put that if you have people that are qualified to be like managers, if you have geologists from your community, this companies should be able to employ them. So sometimes it's good to specify not just laborers, because what they think that the community is good enough for is to be laborers in mining projects. So I always say that in local employment, let's discuss the cadre of the people. And then so one of the economic gain, one of the things I usually would advise communities, ask for a percentage of mineral extract. So, and that also helps the company, because if you are not producing, they are not getting. And at the same time, it helps the community that once they are producing, because sometimes if you look for a one-off gain, when they are producing, that means we don't get anything. If they are producing in our community for the next 10, 20 years, if we have what we have signed is a one-off gain, build borehole, finish building the church or the mosques, what else? Sometimes, okay, they say school and they build some homes and call it school, or build, that ends it. So I always say, even if it's 2% of mineral extract, let it be in the CDA. Let's ask for that. Even if it's 1%, 2%, they might want to buy it off you, but I always advise the community take it. And if you want to give them right at fair market price, so that they don't even determine the price for you. Always ask for it. And the session of environmental impact, that's reclaiming the land, ensuring that your water is protected, the people are protected, also needs to come into the CDA. CDA actually, when CDAs are signed, is advised to actually come and register it. I know that the ministry has where you are supposed to bring a copy of your CDA. A lot of communities don't do it. But when it becomes an object of dispute, if it is registered, it makes it easier for you to enforce it. It makes it easier for the communities to enforce their rights at that point. On that note, thank you very much. I'll be willing to take any question or any conversation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tulu. You've done a very great job from taking us through FPIC to CDA, just generally teaching us how communities can take responsibilities and take charge to determine what happens in their community. And I'm sure people have been writing comments since, but I'm sure that we are all bubbling with questions. So if you have any questions, if you like to speak, just raise up your hand, or like just react, and then we would choose you to we'll unmute your mic so you can ask a question, or you can drop a question in the chat box and the student is here to respond. So questions, everyone. I'm sure we all enjoyed the class. My head was bubbling. In short, I think I'm more motivated to go into mining. No, not mining, to protect mining host communities. But me to do okay. Miss Amy, you can ask your question.
Thank you, Jolie, and thank you, Ms. Tudor, for this. It's just wonderful to hear you speak. My question is around the CDAs and inclusion of women. I'm particular about that. And it's so good to hear you as a woman speak. So in your experience, has that been easy as an issue to be specific about benefits or opportunities for women? So you spoke about economic empowerment and things like that. You spoke about I think what else you spoke about? How is it specifically for women and youths as opposed to be very general? And what has been your experience in this case? Thank you very much.
Should I answer each question, or we allow the questions to go?
I think you should answer each one.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So in practice, what I've seen has not been gender specific. I'm not even going to try and sugarcoat it or make it seem like, no, I've not. I've had a situation where I was even bringing money when I was doing coal mining, and for me to sit in that meeting, I had to bring a man. And I was the one bringing the money to the community. So I think because of culture, a lot of women, even at the point of decision making, which we need to start to get community. I'm sure there are women leaders in communities now. At that point, at the point of even signing, a lot of time women are not even there. Are there ways, because they think that mining is a man's world, as it were, I don't see any benefit. But though in practice, we see women working there, women work as laborers, or they are usually the ones that form communities at the edge of the mining sites to sell food to them, to cook for them. But I've not seen in practice where women are specifically looked out for in the CDA. That, oh, so the women will get 10%. No, I've not seen. I don't know if there is. I know that there are civil society agitating for that now, and I hope that we get there. But under the law, no. In practice, we might begin to get there where communities now say, oh, this, especially for the women that their lands are being taken over, especially farming, or the women that are now being open to being raped because they are now in the bush with men selling food to them and all of that, how they are protected. Communities we need to start to do that. I think a lot of civil society are making a lot of noise about that. But the law doesn't make any specific for that. I hope I've answered your question.
So
If you
I think
yes, you have answered it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. So, Ms. Tudun, even beyond civil society agitating for it, because yes, civil society is agitating for it, but I think that with the new CDA guiding principles, there is a clamor for more representation of women in community development agreement committees, and also like there's general demand
So I
for
think
more
the
women. But like you said, practice, yeah, but practice is different from
yes,
what
I think the committees,
yeah.
they are now saying women should be there like the women leader. But culturally in Nigeria, especially in some part of Nigeria, I think for the south side, they are more open to having women sit compared to the northern side. And I'm not trying to throw at any community or anything, but I think that because of our culture also, it doesn't make it easy. Somebody said, so AJ, can I answer this question in the chat box?
Okay, but let me read it out for the benefit of everyone to hear. So Smith Work Culture says, how do communities measure the 2% mining extract if agreed in the CDA? I'm asking because I'm not sure mining companies publish their books to communities or make it open to communities.
So usually, when I've seen that, because we even have, I work for a state government, and we have licenses where we have entered JV with technical partners that they bring finance. What usually happens is that people, communities or the communities usually would have a representative on site, and so when they win, when they are packing, we count. We've been there. I think it was my car that we were mining in one of the communities that me I'm from. What we're doing is we had a representative. So for every ton of mica they were measuring, we knew what we're collecting. So usually it's when you have a representative that is there.
Thank you
So
very much, Mas. Okay, sorry. You can go on.
no, it's fine.
Okay, so Mr. Yakubu Musa, your hand is up. You can unmute your mic and speak. Yakubu Musa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Quickly, I wish to. It is a known fact that traditional rulers have, over time, maybe compromised in CDA's agreements because of seeming gifts that are given to them by those CSOs. Now come into even the agreement part, so as to guide even traditional rulers in formulating those agreements that will be beneficial to their own community first. And also, it is also a known fact, I don't know, but I may want to use the northern part of Nigeria, especially the middle belt, the north central. It is a fact that some of these women who sell food, who also sell drinks and otherwise to those miners in the mining shaft, are found wanting in quote and unquote, or for want of what, infidelity and immoral acts within mining shafts. Cases have abound here on the plateau and other places. So now, how do we now educate the women to now go directly into real mining and not being a support, a passive partner in this case? Thank you. I am Yakubu Musa Pada from BJ Foundation in Jos.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Yakubu. So I hear you, and I've seen it, and I think one of the things to first protect these women is to create a reporting line. Let communities listen to them. A lot of time we shame women that come and say, I was raped. Let's start from there. Let people feel comfortable enough to be able to say, this person touched me. But what happens most time, we shut them off. We tell them that if you talk, nobody will marry you again. And so they keep quiet, and this evil will begin to continue. For to get women to come together because of economic power, it's hard to find women come together. Women say that they want to mine, right? And but what we can do is to begin to put them in clusters, in cooperatives, and let these women come together, put money together, come and get their license, if possible, their small scale or their cooperative registration at the ministry, and get their land, put people together. I remember when I first got into mining, um, and the day, so I had a supervisor on site. I wasn't always on site because I was come from a background of law. So I was at the time I was not very much interested in being on site, but they stole from me, so I had to go back to site, right? When we won some gemstone and they stole. But at that time, I remember I came to site. Oh, the owner of the site is coming. The owner of the site is coming. And they were waiting for me, and they saw a woman and a laborer that pays. That is me that pays them, is me that they used to buy their rice that they're eating. Said to me, so now woman I they work for. And I almost responded like, what was in my head is, if you can't work for woman, go back home. But I was told to just keep quiet and not say anything, and that's it. because, oh, I'm a woman, you are in the middle of just keep quiet, despite the fact that I was even coming with privilege. So compared to women that don't have any form of privilege, any form of advantage. So let's begin to let communities give these women opportunity to speak out when things like this happen. And we need to begin to put women in maybe in cooperatives so that they can have the economic power to do the business of mining. The business of mining is not cheap. Even if you are going to do jigger and hammer, it's not cheap. Sometimes you need to be able to sustain your work for months before you win things. Sometimes you look for this gemstone 2 years, 1 year, except if they already seeing the stone, or maybe there's already gold, and maybe they are collecting land to pan, right? So because of the economic power is why a lot of women don't go into mining. But if we bring them together in cooperatives, I think that we'll get more women that can raise this kind of money to do the business of mining itself, and not just support or selling food or being prostituted at the edge of the mining communities or mining sites, really. Mr. Yakubu, I hope I've answered your question.
Okay, I think I think you answered the question, but I also like to add that please, I think we should empower women with more skills to try to diversify, because mining is not everything. It's a very hazardous job. It would be better if we go into like other lucrative, but so Mr. If you have your hand up, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Mr. If you can hear me, or Miss Ifyo Kumorem. I don't know if it's a Mr. or Miss. Okay, I can't seem to see. It's like the person has gone offline. But there's a question in the chat box. The person Ekate Anwana, please pardon my pronunciation. The person asks, per your expertise, do you recommend outright sales of the lands, given that lands appreciate over time?
Outright sale, no. Yeah, for the community, I would say no. It becomes difficult when they leave, especially when we think of tomorrow. For a mining company, maybe yes, but I would even do a lease. What we would do is probably a long-term lease agreement, 20 years, 25 years, so that for mining companies, at some point you don't even need the land again. Also for the communities, so that when they go, the land reverts back to your community. So I would say a long-term lease. So don't do 2-year lease. Do a long-term lease depending on the type of mining lease you want to do eventually. But I think that a leasehold agreement works best for mining, really. The communities are not burdened with the land. The companies are not burdened with that, and a long-term lease protects, because the question that usually will come is, what if the communities change their mind after? No, if you have a long-term lease and you have your mining lease, really you are fine.
All right, thank you, ma. Aaron Egot, you have your hand up. If you're still here, you can
Yes,
unmute
I'm
your-
still here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm particularly concerned about the license, mining license, that I understand that mining licenses recognizes one host community. And I'm particularly concerned about the rights of secondary communities, especially when the coordinate has encroached to these communities, and these communities have a remarkable history for forest conservation. Do they have a right? May I know, please?
So when you say forest conservation, that means the community does not want mining activities to eventually happen in their land?
Not necessarily, but the community have a history of forest conservation. That means that they are sustainably managing their forest resources. And now the idea of mining has come in. What is their right, especially since they are not the primary host communities who will want to give consent? Consent was already taken from another community.
And the land is dragged. So
the
I know
government encroach to their own community.
I know that what I've seen, and I still submitted a letter like that to MCO yesterday. What I've seen is that, and I'll give that particular case. That particular case, somebody got a 150 CU exploration lease, and at some point, this new community wanted to give somebody else their lease, and they found out that there's a lease on their land. But what had happened is he got the consent from another community, and dragged it to every other community around that place and covered everywhere. Really, that was what had happened. I know that in now you can, communities that have not given consent and can say this is on our land, they write to MCO. Usually what they do is either, if it's solely on your land, they can revoke the license, there's enough grant for revocation, or they reduce the CU they give that that license holder. Usually what you just need to show is maybe your traditional division that shows this, we are not the one that gave this consent, this fell on our land, let them do the coordinates of that. So it allows them to actually revoke or reduce the license. But the truth is, mineral resources is overriding public interest. It's categorized as overriding public interest. I know that we have forest reserve. We don't want to mining to happen in our community. It's hard to drag that for too long. That's the truth. It's hard to drag that for too long. But can communities now begin to benefit as much as other communities? Yes. Their licenses, I'm sure that big mining companies, our celebrated mining company, they've had to settle different communities. And I know that every community that their license goes through benefits like every other community, right? The more that once they're on your community, they sit on the table with you and they agree on terms and they pay as long as their lease had covered your community. So that is an option. Or you go back and say that, you know what, we did not give them the land, write to MCO, show enough evidence, and they usually will come to the round table and a decision is made. Either to revoke, to reduce, or the company now comes to talk to this community to say, okay, we still want to mine, let us mine, this is what we'll do, and then you agree on terms. And the CDA is signed at that point.
All right, thank you, Ma. So Ekpeyong Edit, I see your hand up. If you can unmute your mic and speak. Edit Ekpeyong. Okay, please, Victor, can you give the mic to Edit Ekpeyong? Yeah, Edit, you can unmute here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, I really want to dig more into this reclamation thing. I don't know, is it the company or the federal government that is supposed to reclaim? Because at times these companies will tell you that they pay certain fees to the federal government, and then the federal government is supposed to reclaim. Then secondly, if a mining license is 5 years and the mining lease is up to 25 years, what happens when the license expires? How would the license now reconcile with the terms of the mining lease? Then I would also want to find out, in a community you have like up to say 3,000 people, and then you find out that maybe 3 or 4 people actually doing the lease. Is it very correct? Is it standard? And then finally, their licenses, they are given for certain minerals. Say, for example, somebody gets a license to mine say coal, for example, at the end of the day, he ends up mining gold. Is there any implication? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I think this is just one question I didn't understand. So I'm going to start with the ones I understand, and you let me. You spoke about mining lease. So the small scale mining lease, which is 5 years, ordinarily is 10 to 5 to 15 CU. There's exploration lease, which is the first stage if you want to get mining lease. That allows you to get as much as 200, 300 if you can pay for it, cadastral unit. And it's 3 years, renewable for 2 years if you can show the reason why you want to renew it. That we've been doing this work and we need more time to do the work. At the point when you get the exploration lease, you can now convert to a mining lease, which is now, that's what is 25 years. So the small scale lease, which is 5 years, which a lot of small scale and artisanal miners go for. So they don't need the exploration lease for that. So the one that's 25 years, usually when you get the big companies that convert their exploration lease to either a small scale lease, or which is 5 years, or a mining lease, which is 25 years. Have I answered that question?
That's okay. Fully understood.
So your second question, I didn't get that. That's one I didn't.
I think he was asking about who
Yes.
reclaims the land.
Oh, who reclaims the land?
Yeah.
In fact, it's the state now. I mean, I say state. It's the mining community.
The mining community. Because you
that-
said something about companies saying that
Yeah.
they've paid the federal government and the federal government should be the one to reclaim the land. But he was wondering who should be the one
That's
to
the first
reclaim
time. Okay, so yes, that's the first time I'm hearing that anybody has said they paid federal government. They pay for impact assessments to federal government, but that doesn't include money to reclaim the land. Except if there's something else I don't know about. But ordinarily, is the mining companies that should reclaim the land. And I think if you have situations like this, let the community write to the federal government, let them write to the ministry, or ask them which quarters of government did they pay to, write to them so that they can clarify it, or write to the ZMO in your area, write to the federal mines office, zonal mines office in your community that's closest to your community. They will usually be at the state capital. Write to them, go and meet them. They will be able to take it off from there.
All right, thank you. And Victor, can you pass the mic to Miss Emily Ofodili? Yeah, Ma, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, I'm not asking a question. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just trying to also clarify on what the last person was asking about reclamation of a mining area. Okay, so usually there's a fund called the EPRM program where companies pay money. However, that fund is meant to be that when companies don't reclaim back the land, government holds that money so they can do it. So there's a program for it, which is domiciled with the MEC department, that is Mining and Environmental Compliance Department. Mining companies are the one who should reclaim the area where they have worked. And that's why there's a problem with artisanal mining when they mine indiscriminately. So usually when funds are paid, the money is not meant to be for them to reclaim the land. However, when the companies, because usually when you finish doing your whole mine closure and everything, I think that money is put in hold in case you don't do it. Then government has that money to be able to do that. I think that's 10% of your project fund. I'm not so sure exactly, but there's a fund for that, which government holds and companies are supposed to pay that money. Then also the man asked about, there was a question he asked. I think Tundu missed it the first time. Okay, I don't know. I can't remember. I wasn't writing. Okay, thank you. That was what I just wanted to say.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. So someone also asked a question in the comment section, Miss Amy. She said, I think it's not always about the money, but the impact of mining on the conservation land. Oftentimes, these activities have significant impact on the flora and fauna. Who monitors this?
Who monitors what now? The flora. So I know that if it's a gazetted land, it can be protected if it's gazetted by the state. You can write all of that, see the minister, none of that. But if it's not a gazetted land, I'm trying to understand what she means by it's not just the money.
I would assume that she's talking about the impact of the mining. Okay, so her hand is up. Maybe she will clarify on her question. Okay, yeah. Miss
Yes,
Amy,
thank you,
unmute.
Ajamile. Yes, so I think a year and a half ago, I did a little bit of research in Adamawa, Taraba, Gashaka Gumti. So that's the example I'm using. We've always known that obviously the park is conservation, it's gazetted, yes. And so there is a mining that is happening. And that is quite recent because they've discovered minerals. And so the mining is happening very close to the park. Its impact is now the people, the community is, everybody's going into mining, banditry. And so now entering the park, because the park is closed, and it is having an impact on the flora and fauna animals, as we know. But the question or the point to do is that who monitors that? So on one hand, the state, dare I say, turns a blind eye, and sometimes the activities of that mining goes unhindered. Everybody carries arms, and so it does have some sort of impact. And the question I was asking is, who enforces it? Is it the park? Is it the conservation? Is it the company? Is it the government? Or is it the community themselves? But
No,
there definitely is some sort of impact.
Okay, so I think I understand better what you're saying now, and I think I give an example of the park also that cuts across Oyo State and Kwara, that lithium activities is going on. There's a whole community in that place, and it seemed like everybody has turned a blind eye. But to be fair, at some point, the federal government guys came, but the amounts of ammunition, because they've allowed it to stay for so long, they had even entered into the park. So where it starts from is people mining around the park, and then they start to enter into the park. So who enforces if it's a federal government park, it's supposed to be federal government. What could have happened is the state government or the community writing to the federal government to look into it. And I know that there's a committee by this new minister to look at reserve areas, illegal mining happening in those places and all of that at the moment, right? So because we also had a situation like that, we even had a state reserve area that illegal mining is happening easily. And so we've tried to write and see as a state, because it's a state reserve area, but there's also the banning that is in Oyo State too. And it's federal government reserve area. We can't even enter to chase them away. But the time the federal government tried to chase them, they met with a lot of opposition from these guys because they've allowed them for so long that they now have the ammunition. They have built a community. So it becomes a very diplomatic issue to tackle after a while. That is not just as of right of, it's a reserve area. If it's not handled on time and properly, it can cause a big unrest in the community. So yes, the state or the federal government should handle it, but if it has stayed for too long, it becomes you need to be very diplomatic and careful about it at that point.
All right, thank you very much, Tudun. Victor, Busayo or Bisakin, the person's hand has been up. Okay, yeah, you can unmute and ask now.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Busayo Bisakin is my name, from Ile-Ife, Osun State. I just want to ask, in a situation whereby this is not a government land, it's a community, you just some farmer, you just wake up one day and you find out that you could not enter your farm again. They have started mining there. Or at the back of your house, you just find out that some people just come around with soldiers, with police, and they started mining, and you want to complain, they started handled you, and you don't know what to do. I just want you to share your experience. How have you been able to assist this type of people in this type of situation? Thank you.
Well, I've not directly been in this type of situation, but I know that the easiest way to go about it is for those people involved to get as much evidence and maybe go to the zonal mines office to report, because there are guidelines, there are rules as to how close mining can be in the community. So you report to the zonal mines office and then let them handle it from there. So if they had a license, how did they get their license? And if they don't have a license, it makes it easy for them to take them out of place. So I would say that write properly. If you have pictures of how close it is, take as much pictures and take it to the zonal mines office. So there's a zonal mines office in regional mines office in every state. It's just to find out where the one in Osun is and take it there.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Tundu. You're doing great. So Mr. Yinka Razak has a question. He said, He said, what happened if the miners fail to commit to the community development of the community in terms of social infrastructure, such as roads and health and schools, etc.? How do community deal with such UN remitted dividends to the community? I mean, unremitted dividends to the community. Me, I'll first say that, Mr. Razak, the first thing is that you're expecting mining companies to come and do for the community what the government should do, but I'll just allow my student to answer the question.
Oh, well, I agree with you, AJ, but if they had agreed to do that in the community, I mean in the CDA, then they should be all responsible for that. But I know that what would happen in practice is they probably say, because mining is long term, sometimes you are working for years and you have not gotten to a good reserve. Probably you are just chasing a pegmatite. So maybe it's to first dialogue with the community. I mean, with the companies, for the community to call the company and dialogue and know why. If it's that they are getting minerals and they just choose to be difficult, then you write to the ministry. I think it's the MEC they can write to, or to the zonal mines office, like I said before. But I think the first thing is to dialogue with them. Because usually when you see communities not fulfilling their side, it's usually that they are probably not gaining, they are not winning, or they've not gotten to a good reserve for their audience. So they are also just spending money, and they are also business people. So they are being careful as to how they will spend money if they have not gotten anything. So it's to dialogue with them and agree on, okay, do this while you're waiting for this, do this while you're waiting for that. But if it's in a case of we are sure that they are getting product, then you can take it up legally with the ministry or with the mines officer.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dudu. And I'll add to that, like you said, they are being careful on how they spend money. So just if you had attended the first class with Ms. Shema, she had specifically mentioned that when you're going into CDAs as communities, it is advisable for you to not ask for things like schools, hospitals, because okay, they come and build schools for you. Then who keeps the teachers? Who pays teachers' salaries in those schools? Do you get? How do you maintain the facilities of the schools after these mining companies have packed and gone? You ask for hospital, they come and they build a beautiful clinic or build a beautiful infrastructure. And then who puts the drugs in these hospitals? How do you ensure that you keep getting renewed medication in the clinic or in the hospital after the mining companies are gone? So the thing is to ensure that when going to community development agreements or when you're demanding stuff from companies, you should ensure that you ask for things that are sustainable, things that even after they have gone, you should still benefit from them. So just asking for things like schools, hospitals, on the surface of it, they sound good, but deep down, if you deep sustainability of what you're asking for, it doesn't really cut it. And so if you're Umorem, your hand has been up since we tried to unmute you before, but it didn't work. I don't know if you're there. Victor, if you're there, okay, please try and unmute. Let's see if you can hear us, or if this is just an old hand that is still up.
Yes, yes. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. All right, you have the floor.
Okay, so yeah, very wonderful session, and I think I'm quite in. I had a lot of expectations for this session. Just that I'm not having. There are not much of. I know it's something that should be a whole 3 to 4 days training in terms of FPIC and CDA, and I'm one of those individuals who have been in very recent times been troubled about how to engage in my community, especially regarding one of the IOCs that is doing a whole lot of harm. And like we all know, one of the things they do is create internal divisions within communities so that they can actually do a whole lot of havoc, as they exploit, not explore, those host communities. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I think that this session could be expanded so that we can be a little bit more detailed around issues on FPIC. Yes, the presenter talked about some of those in nutshells. Some of those things that we can watch out for. Some of those things we can do to safeguard our local communities as we do. And then I'm glad she also enumerated highlighted some of those things that some of these mining companies do. And they just take mugshot pictures and corner vulnerable community members, and then take mugshot pictures to send to their financiers in offshore locations. So yes, those are also problems. But and so what are the questions I wanted to ask? What happens when all of this harm has been done? Some of these FPIC documents have been finalized, and sometimes without much knowledge and some of these insights that has been given, today, you realize that you have been really robbed of some of the benefits you should have gotten. How can we now sit down on the table and be able to call these IOCs or mining companies, back to the tables for new renegotiations? Because, truth be told, some of these things have happened, and even more so in some of these allocations. There's elite capture. There are elite conspiracies. Some of these companies, they get inroads through top-ranking politicians, like governors, like senators, local government chairmen, and other, top politicians in the community. So they just can have their way through anything. So, but this is more like talking about what advocacy strategy can we use to ensure that we get better deal for our communities, and then ensure that we too. That's one. Then the second question I wanted to ask is how can we as civil society, what platforms do exist where we can develop our capacities around FPIC and CDAs? Because I really want to, my knowledge around those issues are a bit shallow, and I want to deepen them. So maybe you can provide some guide.
Sorry, the last thing you said, I got the.
Okay. Come again. What did you say?
I said the second question, if you can repeat it.
Okay, I said the second question is around what platforms or opportunities are there that maybe some of us in the civic space or community actors, where we can deepen our knowledge and our expertise around FPIC and CDA, so that we can, like you talk about communities where you have expertise and how those individuals are able to use their expertise to benefit their communities, and so that's one of the things that can also help communities where these mining operations come from. So what opportunities exist where we as civil society organizations or even community community partners, what platform exists that we can deepen our knowledge around FPIC and CDA issues?
Okay. So I probably might not be the best person to answer. I know that the articles online, but sometimes these articles are Nigerian practice. They are totally two different things, right? But
Yeah.
I know it's usually trainings like this, talking to people that are in that that are in similar field and sharing knowledge across. Okay, in our own situation, we've met with this, we've had this. So I will give example like for where I am, I've had lawyers that I know that are also into communities that have called to say that I'm going through this. Have you ever seen something like this before? My company, the company I'm working for, sometimes they are writing an agreement for the company. This is what they're asking for. How should you go about this? So is in practice is to just find the right community of people that you can talk to on it, join trainings like this. But I know that there are articles online, but if they are foreign articles, they are totally different from what happens in Nigeria. Your first question, if I got you right, is if the CDA that has been signed or the community has gotten their license, their consent, I mean their CDA, mining companies have gotten their licenses, and you realize that the CDA is not favorable, what do you do? It depends. So in the first place I would say is, oh, go to the ministry, go to there's a department, MEC or something downstairs. They usually create the guidelines for the CDA. So it's easy to say, oh, the CDA we signed, or we don't even have a CDA with them, and they can enforce. I know they have the capacity or the responsibility to enforce that CDAs are properly followed and aligned as it should be. How that works, I don't know. But if you go there and complain, go with what you have, go with what should be best practice against the guideline that they have. They should be able to intervene, especially when we've seen communities um, that have no mining companies that sometimes they have license and they never got a consent, or their consent was not properly gotten. The communities can come together and seek redress, usually through that department at the ministry. They are usually willing to help because that's part of their major responsibility.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Tunu. You've done a very wonderful job. And just to piggyback on what you said about available platforms for learning, Mr. Ifyo Kumoren, you're on this platform, and since February, we've been having series of training every month. And this training is not the 3-day thing. It's a training that is supposed to last for a year, and we'll see how far or the needs that we come across along the line, and then we decide to do more trainings. But you should stay put and follow the platform, and just ensure to attend the lectures or the sessions that we have, and also that you can find videos of this training on our YouTube link as Global Rights. So search for Global Rights on YouTube, and you will find videos of previous sessions we've had, because we started this class since February. And for everybody asking for materials, yeah, we'll still share. For those attending last year, the last class, I'm sure you got the slides from the last training. So the student has promised to share her slides, and I would eventually get that to you after the class. So Mr. or Miss Ekate has another question. Person says, is there any provision against SGBV and sexual harassment in the CDA?
So the CDA, I know that we don't really have that, but the CDA can be flexible as long as it follows major guidelines. If we think that in our communities that would be a problem, probably with mining companies, I don't think anything stops us from adding it really. I don't think anything stops us from adding it. But I usually think that most times the harassment comes within laborers and the ladies selling stuff to them and all of that. But if we think that it will be a problem or need to be, especially if the community have experienced something like that before, there's nothing that stops us from adding it just as one of the terms. It's an agreement, it's a contract. Just add it as one of the terms. Sorry, when you say there's a PH, PSEAH, what does that mean? It is important to include pre-sexual exploitation. Okay, yeah, we can always include that in the agreement. I don't think that there's a problem. I mean, it's terms. Just add it as one of the terms in a contract. It's like when you're writing the regular any other contract or agreement. There are terms that are specific to that community or to that area or to the terms to that negotiation that is important for you to put. It shouldn't be. It's not a problem in practice, and is enforceable.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tudun. I don't think there's any more questions in the group chat or any hands raised up again. I'm very grateful for the time you have spent. It's not easy to take out this amount of time from your daily activities. Thank you so much. And to everyone that has joined the class, thank you so much. Thank you for being such a good sport. Thank you for engaging. You are the reason we keep having these classes. And I hope that we all watch this space for the next session that will be coming up. On these notes, I would like to say thank you very much for coming and do have a wonderful evening.
Thank you
Right,
very
goodbye,
much.
everyone.
Thank you for
Yeah, thank
having me. Thank you so much.
it's a
All right.
pleasure. Thank you.